What is happening?
Take two.
Yeah. Are you guys?
I'm just glad you noticed now.
It had no, and before we got through the entire thing, guys, it happened again. I remember to hit record on the camera. I forgot to hit record on the board. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome on take two of the podcast to Joey Antonelli, sitting in on the podcast with us. We're going to roll the intro real quick. It's still rolling. We're good. It's still rolling from when we had it rolling the first time when we weren't recording, so it's fine. There's your intro music. Ladies and gentlemen, Joey Antonelli.
Thanks for having me.
We're 10 minutes into this and we have nothing. So this is just the epitome of our day, though, right?
Yeah, that's the way it's going.
So Joey and I went fishing this morning. We'll talk more about that in a minute. There was lots of bait, not very many fish, but you guys just had a storm, right? I think that was
and I think after a storm, I'm not saying fishing's bad because a lot of times fishing can be great, but I just think it's unpredictable. I mean, you don't know what bait they're going to be on, where they're at, what tides they're feeding on. You got to go back out again and start the patterning all over. So that's
it always makes me feel a little bit better when we're out there and there's like guide boats all around us and they're not catching anything.
All my friends that were out there today, the same thing. Everyone was complaining.
Yeah, we fished a pretty like hot area for you guys, right? And it was, there was nobody catching fish whatsoever. So just so you know, a lot of what we do on the podcast is kind of life off camera for Joey, and we don't always talk about the YouTube channels a lot, just so you know. We'll get into that stuff, but the podcast can go anywhere. So if you have something you want to talk about, you want to get off your chest, this is the place to do it. So when you're not fishing and filming and doing the whole YouTube thing, what do you like to do to help yourself unwind?
I will say the number one thing I do is fish and dive. That's what I want to do pretty much all the time. It's what my day goes. It's what I always think about. But I have one activity I like to do for fun, and I like to bowl.
Really?
I like bowling. I'm not crazy good. I'm not.
Are you like a professional bowler?
No, I'm not like a 240 average or anything like that. I got about a 170 average.
I did see the shirt when we were moving everything around to get set up for the podcast. I did see the shirt. So are you on a bowling team?
Yeah, I bowl in a league, a little fun league. It's not really competitive. It's a handicap league. So
is it one of those leagues where you do more drinking beer than you do bowling? Or
this one, not so much. It's actually a teacher's league. My county, I live in Brevard County.
Well, I mean, let's be honest. The teachers probably have more reason to drink than anybody dealing with kids.
But I think they got to stick in private for that. Yeah, they can't be doing that in public where they're going to see their students as much. But it's fun. My aunt bowls, or my aunt's on the school, what is it? Not the superintendent, the school board. She's on the school board, and she invited us to bowl on her league.
Nice.
So
and how long
my wife and I do it.
How long have you been bowling?
I actually did a bowling league when I was in like 5th and 6th grade.
Really? So you've done it consistently?
On and off, not the whole time. Okay. On and off. I've done a couple different leagues, and this is the longest I've done it. It's been like 2 years doing a.
You got your own shoes, ball, all that?
We got it all. I got a lot of bowlers in my family, actually. Like I got my uncle Bill kills it. He's the best in the family. He's bowled. I can't even count how many 300s.
Really?
I don't know if he bowls professionally. I don't know if that's what it is, but he does tournaments all over the country.
Does he make money?
If he does well in a tournament,
then he's a professional.
Yeah, he does. If he makes money, if he does well in a tournament, I know he makes money. But I got my little cousin Mikey. He's bowled a 300. My cousin Diane's bowled a few. Like,
what's your high? What's the highest score you've ever bowled?
My high is like 240-ish.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
And what about your wife? What's her? Is she better than you?
No, she's not better than me. But she actually bowled a 170 recently.
Nice.
And she's got somewhere more like a 130 average. So like that's a pretty big jump up from your average.
For sure.
Now I'm like around 170
Are you guys on a co-ed team?
Yep.
Okay. So it is co-ed. We did a bowling league one time way back when my wife worked for a law office in Kentucky, and honestly, like that 8 weeks was probably some of the most fun time
it's so fun
I've ever. I mean, just to be honest with you, like you don't really picture bowling, like because most people that have bowled, I shouldn't say most, a lot of people that have bowled, it's just you take your wife, your kids, you go to the bowling alley and you set up and you play 2 or 3 games. And that's all I'd ever done before we did that league. And she was like, I signed us up for a bowling league. And I'm like, oh, what? Why? The people I don't know, I'm like, why are we doing this? And then after the first night there, we get in the car and I didn't really say anything on the way home. And she's like, did you not like it that bad? And I'm like, I actually loved it. I'm like, I had like the time of my life tonight. I'm not going to lie to you. So, I mean, I get it. It was a lot of fun when we did that.
Yeah.
So,
my daughter's even on a Saturday league, like
really?
a kids youth league, they call it.
So it's a family affair then.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome. Well, I did want to. I don't want to get too much into. And I don't know how much you show your daughter on your YouTube channel, but did have the opportunity to meet Joey's family when we got in town. First thing he told me, he pitched a video idea to me, and we're gonna leave this up to you guys if it's okay to talk about this.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
So Joey's daughter's hermit crab passed away. May he rest in peace. Joey feels like it would be a really great idea to take that said hermit crab, which is in the freezer.
He's in the freezer awaiting burial.
He's lying in state. Yeah. Is where he's at. It just happens to be in the freezer. Joey wants to take it and use it as bait, which personally, I feel like that's an amazing idea. Your daughter, not so much. No, she does not seem to be on board.
No.
Realistically here, what could you catch with a frozen hermit crab?
I want to put it out when the pompano are biting.
Oh, so
when there's a good pompano bite, I want to catch a pompano on it.
Yeah, because that would basically be almost like a sand flea, right?
Yeah, it's a crab. I mean, you get pompano, you get whiting, anything, little croakers. I bet all sorts of stuff will eat it.
Now I gotta watch every video.
We use them I've used them in the Bahamas to catch bonefish.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've used hermit crabs for bonefish.
So you have. Well, I mean, I never even really thought about that, but like we have hermit crabs everywhere. There's a little like spoil island there in Pensacola, and there's hermit crabs there everywhere. I wonder if you could get sheep's head on them.
I'm sure you could, but you do have to check the regulations. I know that's something I've heard. I don't know for sure what the rules are. I've never seen it in writing, but I know that the ones we have at the state park, I had a guy that knows a lot about it. Again, he's not law enforcement or anything, but he told me you're not allowed to do it. He told me you can't go busting up those shells and using hermit crabs for bait.
But if we didn't, if we didn't video it, maybe.
Oh, sheep's head would crush them.
Yeah,
sheep's head would crush them. Like, if the law's not part of the issue, they would crush them.
Yeah, so we're gonna try fiddler crabs that we hand caught. I mean fiddler crab, hermit crab. I'm joking. We're not breaking any rules. Nobody start calling FWC on us. So I guess one of the main questions I want to ask you, and it's one of the things that I always think about when I'm watching your channel. I mean, I know for me, like if I catch any fish of size, it's super exciting for me because I haven't done it. How do you keep your excitement level up catching fish? Like when you've caught stuff like this before and you're continually to catch them, but like a lot of the fish you catch, you've already caught the bigger, better version of that fish. How do you keep your excitement level up for those?
I think it's just an addiction to it. Like I think I have a really, really addictive personality, and I fish. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I don't do anything. I've never drank in my entire life.
Yeah.
I've never drank a beer.
Really?
In my whole life. 33 years.
People think I drink all the time because of my alter ego, and I really don't. Like I don't drink that much at all. But I've definitely had beer. It's impressive that
you. So I've never had a drink. But I think
as he says this, he's stumbling over his words. Yeah, exactly.
Pull a little Mr. Leahy moment.
Yeah, right.
I think I have a super addictive personality, and when I like something, I get really, really into it. And there's certain types of fishing I like more than others, and it's just, I don't know, I just keep doing it. I like it.
Because the reason I ask that, because a lot of times, like, I'm at a point now where redfish, and I mean, I don't mind to share this with my audience. Sometimes my excitement is less than authentic. When if I pull a bull red in at the bridge, and it's a 36-inch bull red, it's not my PB. I've caught so many of them now. It's hard to be as excited for that one as I was for the first one. So you put on a little show. So what you're saying is when you catch these fish, you're legitimately excited.
I'm legitimately excited, and I think when I do my videos, I'm an opportunist. I mean, I'm not going to go tarpon fishing if tarpon fishing is really hard. If it's easy to go catch snook, I'm going to go catch snook. If it's easy to go catch cobia, I'm going to do that. But I get what you're saying. I do get bored. Like if the snook bite on the beach in the summertime is on fire and I can hit it 5 days in a row, I'm definitely not going to be as excited by day 5 as I am by day 1. But if I go offshore a couple times, I'm going to be like, all right, this is a lot of work going offshore. I want to go back to the beach and catch a snook.
So it's almost like
it's like a cycle. And where we are, I mean, I'm on the central east coast of Florida. I have such a wide variety of fish, and in year round, it's almost, I mean, the possibility of good weather year round. It's never too cold or for a super long period of time, at least, as long as the wind's not too bad.
Yeah, because you're in that unique. So you guys have seen us fish in South Florida before, on the East Coast, South Florida, where they really don't have very many redfish whatsoever. They don't really have a lot of speckled trout. Do you guys have speckled trout here?
We do.
Just not abundantly.
No, yeah, we have them. We used to have a lot. A lot of our grass got killed off. So like when I was a kid, I could go catch 30-inch trout. I wouldn't say no problem, but I mean, I caught a lot of them when I was 12 years old or so.
Got you. Because that's kind of the difference. Like where we are in Pensacola, we don't have snook. We don't have, trying to think about what else we don't have up there. Like when you go to the far South Florida, we don't have like clown knifefish, snakehead, peacock bass. We don't have any of that in Pensacola. Right. But you guys are fortunate that you guys are kind of crammed in the middle. You guys kind of have the best of both. I mean, I know you don't have the exotics up here, but you still have the snook. And we saw the one fish we did see them land out there today was a nice size redfish that they caught out at the jetties. So it's pretty cool that you've got such a wide range of fishery here. Of everything you do, and then I want to exclude spearfishing, diving, because I know you enjoy that. Let's talk hook and line first.
Okay.
Of all the hook and line fishing you do, what is your favorite fish to actually go out and target? Like you're setting up that morning, you know this is what I'm going after. What's your favorite fish to go after?
I would say it's a toss-up between sight fishing cobia on manta rays, not cobia on bull sharks or anything like that, but a good day of sight fishing cobia on manta rays is really hard to beat.
Yep.
Next to that, it would be like a tarpon feeding frenzy. I'm not saying 1,000 casts for one hookup. I'm saying tarpon feeding frenzy from the beach, like no boat, nothing like that. You got to be on the sand, because then it's really you versus the fish. You know you have 400 or 500 yards of line on your reel, and it doesn't matter if that fish is 40 pounds or 150 pounds. You need to stop it because you can't chase it. You need to put the heat to it. You need to put 15, 20 pounds of drag on that fish, and like you're like leaning into them. Like that's hard to beat too. It's a really man versus fish situation for power.
Yeah, and it's funny that you brought that up, because I was listening to a few of your videos on my drive down last night, and one of the ones I guess it was a recent video where you caught a tarpon from the beach, and it, like in my mind, I'm just like trying to wrap my mind around that. Which I mean, I get that they can't really run you into structure, but it's kind of just a strength test at that. It's basically tug of war. I mean, honestly,
I have a reel. My reel that I tarpon fish with doesn't do anything else. I don't want that line ever touching a piling or a reef or anything. That line it needs to be like 100% perfect, because I use like an FG knot. I use 80-pound leader, and the braid's only 20 pound, but it breaks way higher than 20 pound.
Right.
But if you get one little nick 200 yards out on your spool and you're putting 20 pounds of pressure on this fish, I mean, when it gets to that point, it's gone.
It's gone. It's going to go. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's cool that you catch that. And we talked when we were on our way out to fish this morning, we talked about the mullet run.
Yep.
Which is huge over here on the East Coast. I mean, people travel from, I guess, all over. I know a couple of the guys from our area came over and did the mullet run with you guys. That's something I've never experienced, but it looks wild. Like when you see it in videos, it looks wild. Like it's just insane going on out there.
Yeah, it's really, really fun to watch. And when I get people talking about the mullet run, people always ask, they see like 3 mullet, and they're like, is this the mullet run? I'm like, no, those are just mullet. That's not the mullet run. It's the mullet run, for those you don't know. It's a big migration, and it's usually the finger mullet is what people think of. There's a couple different types of mullet. There's the big black mullet or the striped mullet, and then there's the finger mullet, and then there's the bigger mature finger mullet, which are like the silvers. And it's really cool to watch, because there'll be sharks, there'll be tarpon, there'll be redfish. I mean, I haven't seen it in a couple of years, but just where I live, I've seen 40-inch redfish flying completely out of the water, blowing up on these mullet. I mean, you think of snook and tarpon doing that, but you don't think of a redfish all the way out of the water.
Well, yeah, I mean, I told you earlier when we were on the boat, one of the coolest things we've ever captured, in my opinion, filming, was when we hooked that redfish at 3 Mile Bridge, and this thing breached because it was running from a shark. But to see a redfish breach, like you see them come up and tail, like that's not what we're talking about. Like we're talking free willy. Yeah, these fish are skying out of the water. Yeah. It's super cool, just because, like you said, you don't expect that. Largemouth bass, yeah, if you're a freshwater fisherman, you're getting that from largemouth bass. Tarpon, snook, they're gonna sky on you. Redfish don't do that.
No,
it's just
not normal.
Not normally. So to see those fish blowing up on those baits, it's
so cool to watch. Like, and it's actually, you would feel like you're going to hook up instantly. And some days you do. Some days there's a lot of fish underneath them. But some days the show's all up top and you struggle to get a bite. I mean, you're looking at fish blowing up, and they don't want to touch your bait or your lure or whatever you're using.
Well, and we talked about this a little bit this morning. And I've always said this, and again, you guys know I'm not like a grade A fisherman by any stretch, but it seems to me like if there's that much bait in the water, it would be a lot harder to get them to eat. I mean, I would think, because they're so abundant. There's so many of them out there. they got a 1 in a million shot of hitting your mullet rather than the other, 10,000 of them that are running up and down the beach freeing. So it just seems like it would be more difficult to me.
Definitely.
I felt like we were in the mullet run today. It is.
I mean, it still is. It definitely is.
It was crazy because when we came back in, and we'll talk about the trip here in just a minute, just to let you guys know how bad I did today. But when we were coming back in, we ran over one spot where the mullet were coming under the boat just nonstop for like 5 minutes. It felt like they were ever. So just so you guys know, I did not have it. You guys are seeing me like suck down some water here. So I committed 2 cardinal sins while fishing with Joey today. We didn't a bit more get out there, and like I have a routine. Just so you guys know, and Joey can attest. I'm sure most people do. I don't eat anything before I go off on a boat because you have to go to the bathroom, and I try not to like eat anything too late the night before, which I didn't do. As soon as we got out there, I had to go to the bathroom. I'm like, look, dude, I am so sorry. Like, I don't even want to tell you this, but I'm going to have to go to the bathroom. So we go back to the boat ramp. We get back, and it's like we weren't there 10 minutes, and I'm like doubled over the side of the boat hurling. Like, I haven't been seasick in 2 years, and something about today, I don't know what it was, lack of water or what, but I'm like just vomiting over the side of the boat. And I'm like, I'm sorry, dude. Like, I promise you, I'm not normally this finicky when we fish, but it was a rough morning for me out on the water, needless to say. But with that being said, the one cool thing we did see that I was getting to was when we kind of came back in a little bit and we saw that shark chasing those jacks.
Oh, yeah.
That was cool. I mean, because it was all happening on top. I don't think I had a camera rolling when it happened, but I thought it was a tarpon. When I first saw its tail, it had that silver flash to it. Like, it looked to me like a tarpon, and then it came back up, and it was about a 6-foot bull shark just exploding on jacks.
Yeah, the jacks were blowing up on the mullet. They were getting super fired up. So like when the jacks are eating, it's kind of like their guard's down. They're not looking for predators as much, so they're probably a little more vulnerable. Yeah,
and it was cool because you seen all these mullet like skying out of the water, and then you seen the jacks coming in behind them, and then all of a sudden there's a shark coming up.
Yeah,
it was the food chain in action right there.
As a bull, the bulls have been in the inlet and in the river, just out of control. Anywhere from like I would call it 6 foot. It's still a juvenile bull shark. I mean, I would still call it a juvenile. 6 foot, 7 foot, 8 foot bulls, like they are destroying the snook and redfish as we're trying to catch them. I mean, half the fish are getting hit by sharks.
This morning we know 100% without a shadow of a doubt that Joey got sharked.
Oh yeah,
we're pretty confident. I did too because I was pulling in something. It could have been a jack. I don't know, but it didn't have a ton of weight to it. But all of a sudden, like it was coming straight towards the boat, and then it just flew out to open water, and then within a matter of seconds, it cut me off. So I'm pretty sure I got sharked too, but
and it cut you off so high up, way up the top shot. I mean, you lost like 4 or 5 foot a leader there. So
it was. So
that's not a jack.
Yeah, it was definitely So I would say without a shadow of a doubt, both of us got sharked this morning. And here's the thing, and the reason I bring that up, we only hooked up 3 times this morning. So Joey caught one jack that he actually got in the boat. We hooked up 2 other times, and both times we got sharked. So it's like it's tough when that's happening like that, and it's discouraging when you fish for a little while and then you finally hook one up, and then the next thing you know, your line's just running out. To wherever. So I know you do some. I don't consider it controversial. I know some people consider some of the stuff you do controversial. I do not. Joey has a habit of, number one, I think this is crazy that you go out fishing on a Sea-Doo. I've said that forever. I think it's all more power to you. But I'm just like, for me, I'm like, I'm not getting out there. I'm not that well balanced. I'm really starting to piss things off that could eat me. And I'm on a flotation device that I'm probably not very stable on because I'm fat. So that's where I'm coming from. But you go out and do it like regularly. But you kind of do the unique things if you're going out to keep fish on your Sea-Doo. What do you do with your fish when you bring them in? Because I don't want to ruin it.
It depends on the fish.
Yes, of course. Now, everything we were getting ready to say is 100% legal.
Yeah, it is legal.
Yes.
And there's a reason for it.
Yes.
A reason besides YouTube views.
That's why I said I don't think it's controversial, but I know that there's people out there that do. So that's why I wanted to bring it up.
Yeah, so a lot of the times when I go offshore on the Sea-Doo, just because of where I live, there's always the opportunity for, it could be a really, really good fish. So I usually bring a pistol with me. I mean, it's not for protection.
A real one.
Yeah, it's not for protection from people, I should say. Not for that, or not to fend off a shark or something like that.
Yeah.
But if I'm going to catch a fish and I'm going to kill a fish, I always say I want that fish dead 5 minutes before I hook it. And I'm not saying because I don't want the fight. I love the fight. It's fun. But if my end goal is to have that fish inside my fish bag on ice to bring home, I don't want to draw out the fight and everything, especially with how bad the sharks are. I mean, not saying the sharks are putting me in danger, but there's days when we lose 80% of our catch to sharks. So if I hook a big fish and I fight it and I get it by the Sea-Doo, sometimes I'll use a pistol and I'll shoot it with the pistol. I mean, it really doesn't matter where you hit it. I mean, I've never shot it like towards the tail or like middle of the body, but if you hit it anywhere near the head, it's a 40 caliber bullet. And I think just the power of what it does, it kills it. It kills them. I mean, it kills them like instantly.
Well, and here's the reason I say I don't think it's controversial, and I really don't. And here's why. Most of the time, I can say without a shadow of a doubt, I mean, you've caught way more fish than I have, but for me personally, every time I've ever gotten sharked, it's been when I got a fish to the boat, the boat spooked the fish, it made another run, and then it's extremely exhausted, and it has nothing left to get away from a predator fish that maybe, I mean, literally, I think I've gotten sharked either 3 or 4 times on redfish. All 3 or 4 times that it's happened, it was the same scenario. Fish got to the side of the boat, spooked, made another run, then got sharked because it had no energy to get away from it when it got back down there.
Yeah.
And just so you know, and I'm sure this is the same way down here in our area of Florida, and I'm sure Joey's, if a fish gets molested, which that's what happens when they get bitten by a shark, you can't keep that fish. So let's say they bite the tail off of a king mackerel. We can't keep them. I mean, I'm sure that's that way here too.
I don't know. I mean, if it's undersized, definitely not. But I mean, I don't know. Like I know with like a fish that have a slot, like a redfish, if you have a 40-inch redfish and it gets cut and now it's in the slot, you can't keep that. That doesn't make it a slot. You got to throw it back.
Yeah. So that's what I'm talking about.
So even if it was a 27-inch redfish, which is legal. Well, now we actually don't even have a redfish, so that might be a bad example. But if it was a slot fish and it gets cut, you have no way of showing the actual size of that fish.
Yeah.
So, and then another thing with the Sea-Doo, I do have a gaff, and I use a gaff at certain times. If I get a 10-pound kingfish, I'll just gaff it because I can pretty much handle it. But it's not like a boat where you can pull the fish over the gunnel and let it go nuts. How many times you see like people pull a cobia in on a gaff and then it proceeds to go absolutely bonkers inside the boat? It can't do that in the Sea-Doo. It's going to end up back in the water.
Right.
Because it's a gunnel that's a foot wide.
Exactly.
So I want the fish dead. It's safer for me. It's going to be a better end result.
It's more humane for the fish. I mean, in all honesty, because I mean, he dies instantly. It's over. So it's like, but you've had like other creators that have been upset about that. And I'm sure people in your comment section, because I'm a firm believer that no matter what we do, we will never please everyone.
Oh, no.
So it's like, but you've actually had other creators get upset with you about that and like try to say stuff. But I mean, at the end of the day, as long as you're doing everything within the confines of the law, which you are, there's nothing illegal about that. There's nothing wrong with doing that. You know, it's really not that big. I think it's funny. Like I've always said this, and if you disagree, by all means, tell me you disagree. I don't mind. We love the drama and the controversy, but I almost can justify, if I've never fished before or I don't eat meat or something like that, I can almost justify me getting on your post and being like, I can't believe you could do that to an animal, whatever. You know how they go. I don't understand people in the sport doing it.
Yeah.
It makes no sense to me. Like, you know what goes on with these fish. I've never been able to wrap my mind around somebody that is a fisherman or in the sport, and they're like, I don't see how you could do that to that fish. And I'm like, what do you mean? What, you fish too? Yeah, but I do it this way. Well, at the end of the day,
you're saying people that still keep fish but just do it a different way, or people that are strictly catch and release?
Yeah, well, no, not even catch and release. Like, it's just like, that still keep fish, whatever. But it's like, you don't like there. I'm sure there's a number of people who don't agree with you spearfishing. Yeah, they want you have to give the fish a chance.
Yeah, the chance. That's the best part. It's like, why?
Yeah.
Well, you shouldn't use a reel. You should go back to using a yo-yo and a hand line.
Exactly. It's like we've come. I mean, and you know what the worst ones are? God's honesty, fly fishermen. If you're a fly fisherman, I love you to death.
I love my ribbon twirlers.
That's me too. But hey, listen to me. There is nobody more pure than fly fishermen. Like, apparently, according to fly fishermen, Jesus Christ himself used a fly rod, and that's how it's supposed to be done. Like that, when you hear them talk, they're so passionate about it, and there's no other way. You have to use a fly rod to catch everything. So,
fly or die, baby.
Yeah, and it's funny to me because I really don't know that there's any other like core group of outdoorsmen who are so passionate about the way they do it. And everybody like has their own way. I mean, you're going to have, even with a hook and line, you're going to have your own way of doing things. I'm going to have my own way of doing things. And neither of them's wrong. If you get a fish to the boat, that's the end game. But fly fishermen, you go catch a trout in Gatlinburg, Tennessee on a spinning reel and just look at the looks you get. Because they're going to be on both sides of you. And you become not a very good person to them at that point if you're doing that. I'm telling you right now. I remember to turn the recorder back on.
Nice.
So I've heard you talk about a couple times that, 12-year-old, 13-year-old. When did you start fishing?
I've fished my whole life.
Really?
I mean, I've got pictures of my dad holding me on the beach, like before I could walk, when he was snook in one hand and me in the other.
So is your dad like your fishing inspiration?
Yeah.
Is
My
that
dad definitely got me into fishing, but also like my grandpa, not my dad's dad, but my mom's dad. He also fished. This is some of his stuff up here, like all his reels. Like,
oh, that's cool.
we got this one is it's a merit award. It's just from a striper contest in New Jersey and stuff like that. There's a bunch of stuff like that. He won some tournaments and stuff. It's just cool. Bunch of his stuff, old
yeah. I
reels
mean, this is probably going to be one of the best backdrops we've ever had for the podcast.
Yeah.
As far as fishing goes, this is pretty cool. So now your sculls, do you do those yourself?
That's him right there, Bluefish Bill.
Bluefish Bill. Is that your granddad?
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's lure. Probably hang on to that one. Probably won't fish that one.
So was he from New Jersey? Was that where he was?
Yeah, he was from New Jersey. Moved down here, I think, in the '60s.
Gotcha.
And I mean, all his daughters and his son, they'd all fish on the beach when we were growing up. We'd all have family vacations and fish on the beach for whiting and pompano. And we would take a vacation from literally like 3 miles down the street, and then all the family would stay at the same motel and fish on the beach.
Really?
Yeah.
So is this where you grew up? Is here in this area?
Yeah.
Gotcha. So you've always
I've
been
only
here.
lived in this same area. I've never lived anywhere else.
We talked about this earlier on the boat. It's funny to me that we were talking about bluefish and kind of the size of the bluefish you guys have and what we have. So many people don't understand that even though you have the same fish in your area, it's really not the same fish. Right. And I think bluefish is a prime example because they have bluefish up in the Northeast and these things are giant. Like
there's tournaments for them.
Yes.
You will never see a tournament in Florida. No. I mean, I'm sure there's one somewhere. But
not a major.
Bluefish is not in a tournament in Florida.
Not at all. And it's funny because we'll catch for our area. If you catch a 3 or 4 pound bluefish, that's a decent sized bluefish. I think you said about the same thing down here.
Yeah, a normal, most of the big time. One maybe like 4 or 5 pounds. Not to say we do get every few years we'll get big fish. I think they're all spawned out because they're skinny.
Yeah.
But they're heavy still. They're still like 10, 12 pound fish.
Yeah. So when we pull up a fish, and we like in our area, Pensacola, we don't really get those at all. Like 3 or 4 pounds, that's a big bluefish. And we'll say, man, this is a giant. Inevitably, there's always that guy from New Jersey who's like, that's a baby.
Yeah.
It's a baby. We catch them 14, 15 pounds. I mean, it's like, yeah, but you live in an entirely different area of the country than we do when we catch these fish. We're not catching fish in New Jersey. We're catching fish in Pensacola, Florida. And say black drum's a huge one. Because our black drum, you guys have black drums down here, right? Okay, so like for us, if you get like a 14 to 20 inch black drum, it's pretty good eating. Like the bigger ones, not so much, but those 14 to 20 inch, they're good eating. And I've had so many big, like black drum are disgusting. Well, a freshwater black drum and a saltwater black drum are two totally different fish when it comes to taste and like texture and all those things. It's not even close. It's not even a close comparison.
Well, on the same subject as that, I get people. And there people like we were talking about, people argue with everything you do.
Yes.
No matter what you do, people are going to argue. But I'll post a picture of a kingfish, a king mackerel. And it'll happen just because the internet's worldwide. I'll get someone in Australia saying that's a Spanish mackerel because the Spanish mackerel in Australia is really, really similar to our kingfish. It's not like our Spanish mackerel. It's more like the size of our kingfish. It might be the same fish. I don't know. I think there is little differences though. But or yellowtail. A yellowtail in Florida is a yellowtail snapper.
Yep.
Everyone in California, yellowtail is more like an amberjack style looking fish, but it's really, really good to eat. It's just different, same name, different fish.
Yeah, well, even like smaller fish. I was talking about menhaden this morning.
Oh,
you guys don't call them menhaden down here. You guys
we call them pogies.
Yeah, and we call them. I mean, I've heard them called that up there too, but the most common name that I've heard them called is menhaden.
Yeah.
So even from it's basically like it's a generational thing. It really is. I think there's very few fish that only have one name.
Yeah, unless you're going by the scientific name, you can't argue it.
Yeah,
there's one scientific name, and no one uses it for any fish.
Yeah, well, funny story about king and Spanish mackerel. It's funny that you brought that up because when I first bought the Mako, like I think I'd had it like a week. I go out one day and I'm crushing monster Spanish mackerel. I go back, post pictures on Facebook. I'm like, look at these fish I caught. Brant saw it, didn't bother to call me when Brant saw it because he already had some other issues with other people. But somebody did reach out to me and be like, hey, not trying to be a jerk here, but I do want to let you know those are not Spanish. Those are juvenile kings.
Oh.
I didn't know. I mean, they look like Spanish to me. So he's like, oh, he told me about the lat line and what to watch for. And sure enough, I went on there and looked, and they were all juvenile kings. I'd kept them. I mean, they were at my house, and all of them were undersized. They were great Spanish, but they were not 24 inches. They were not Spanish. So, so it was stuff like that. But, that might be one of the biggest controversies because a juvenile king, if you don't know how to watch that lat line, they do look just like Spanish.
We get it up
mackerel
on the jetty, too. People, every now and then, we'll get those baby kings will get mixed in with the Spanish, and people will have piles of them, and sometimes law enforcement will come out there and straighten them out without them, or give them tickets, or sometimes people will be like, hey, that's not and it's usually a mistake. It's usually an honest mistake. For sure. I don't think people are really going out there trying to find 20-inch kingfish.
Yeah, and I mean, mine definitely was. I mean, because like I said, I really did think at that time I was catching, because I mean, every Spanish I'd caught up to that point had been like 12, 13 inches from my kayak, and I'm catching like 20, 21, 22-inch Spanish, and I'm like, God, we are crushing it. I had no idea that the juvenile king still had the spots and everything on them, just like the Spanish did. I mean, it was an honest mistake. Now, had I got stopped by FWC, it still would have been a ticket. It wouldn't have mattered that it was an honest mistake. It would have been a ticket.
Right.
Another thing you do that Joey's nuts, guys. If you guys don't know who Joey is, I do have all his stuff linked down in the description box below. Make sure you guys go check him out, because I promise you, if you love fishing, you're not going to be disappointed. This dude does more in the fishing world than most people do ever in their life. But like the fact that you get in the water with a spear gun, especially like today's a prime example of this. Like I saw a shark eat a jack that was bigger than your leg. So the fact that you're willing to get in blue water, which if you don't know is deep water, and spearfish, that's crazy to me. Like I can't even imagine like getting myself off the boat.
Oh, I love it. I mean, hands down, if I could put my picture perfect best fishing day versus my picture perfect best diving day, I'm going diving every time.
Really? Now, do you always fish, or do you ever just recreational dive sometimes?
You mean spearfish versus just regular diving?
Yeah. Like, do you ever just go out and just dive just for the fun of diving?
Not really. And especially where I live, I don't go swimming in the ocean. I'm not going in the water without a spear gun. If I'm in the water, I want to have enough visibility to see, and I want to have the gun. I think it goes back to like, just obsessed with that. I will actually, I'll take that back, because I've been down and dove like protected areas. Yeah. Like, I can't remember the name, but there's a place I'd go to in the Bahamas, and the fish they're so trained. I mean, they know you can't go in there and spear them. We were feeding mutton snapper cheese out of a Cheez Whiz can.
That's crazy.
I'm talking 15-pound muttons coming up to us eating.
You just wanted to grab it, didn't you?
You want to, but at the same time, it's like there's no point. It's cool just to see it, but it's just amazing. So like at that point, I do like diving, just swimming and stuff like that. But
Joey showed me a really cool video, and did you figure out what that was on? Was it on YouTube or?
I know it is on YouTube somewhere, but
you might
I
have
went
to come
back
a little closer. I'm almost not hearing you now.
Gotcha.
There you go.
I know it is on YouTube, but I found it on my Instagram. I went back on my Instagram.
So anyways, it's out there, so I can talk about it. So Joey was out. I guess your friends were hook and line fishing from the boat.
Yeah, a lot of the times we hook and line and spearfish at the same time.
Yeah, and then in this particular case, they had caught a cobia, got it up to the boat. They gaffed the cobia, and whoever was holding the gaff lost it. Well, Joey was in the water with a spear gun, and when the fish dove back down, Joey speared it. So whose fish is at that point?
The hook came out. That was my fish.
That was...
Hook came out.
He said the hook came out. That was my fish.
But that would have been a fish 100% gone. There's no way they were getting that fish back.
No.
It was, I didn't, it's not like I swam down to the bottom, but I 15 feet below the surface or 10 feet or whatever. But anyways, anyone that fishes a lot offshore has messed up a gaff. If you gaff a lot of fish, we've all done it.
Yeah.
You won't see it in people claiming it, but it happens.
I've never messed up a gaff ever.
You got the one,
but I've only done it one time. So, and I was telling Joey earlier, I was like, Brant had me gaff a fish one time for him. I don't even know. I feel like it made a video somewhere along the lines. And Brant's like, hey, I need you to gaff this fish. And I was like, man, I don't know. I was like, here, let me hold the rod and you gaff it. He's like, no,
it's a responsibility.
He's like, you got this. And I'm like, so I gaffed the fish, nailed it first try, I pulled it in the boat. And Brant's like, see, good job. I was like, I'm pretty sure my eyes were closed. He was like, what? I'm like, I'm not joking. I'm like, I'm pretty sure I closed my eyes when I set the gaff there, just to, way if I messed up, I'd have an excuse, I guess. So I'm never going to touch a gaff again, because right now I'm batting 100% with the gaff.
Yeah,
because
not a lot of people can say that.
No, which I mean, if I now the next 10 times I try, I'll miss the fish, guaranteed, every single time. What is your favorite, like, spear fishing? What's your favorite fish to target?
I don't know. That's hard. I just like being around a lot of life. If I'm around a lot of life, I can have fun spearfishing. Yeah. I like diving deeper stuff. Not necessarily. I'm not a very deep in the freediving world. I'm not a deep diver by any means. I can free dive about I'm about a 75-foot diver, which sounds deep when I talk to fishermen, but when you realize a lot of free divers are 100, 120-foot divers, 75 isn't really that impressive. Now,
when you say
anymore.
Free diver, you're talking about no air, no apparatus.
Yeah, you have mask, fin, snorkel. I mean, your gear's a little specialized.
Sure,
you got longer fins. You got I don't know, nice.
But you don't have an air tank.
No air tank. It's holding your breath. So you're at the surface. People do whatever kind of breathe up you like to really saturate your lungs with oxygen, and then hold your breath and go down.
Gotcha. See,
it's one breath, and for me, about a 75-foot dive, that's about a minute and 15 to minute and 25 seconds.
Which, I mean, it's crazy when you think about the fact that you're exerting energy too.
Right, and that's what it is. There's a big difference. You sit on a couch or lay down and hold your breath. That's a static breath hold.
Yes, you're not doing anything.
I've never done lessons, so I don't know what it really is, but I've heard somewhere along the line that like your actual dive time, you should probably be more like a third of your static breath hold. So if you can hold your breath for 4 minutes, you probably got about a minute and 30 or minute and a half.
And I can see that. And what he's talking about between the static and like exerting energy is obviously if you're sitting on the couch, nothing's happening. You're going to be able to hold your breath longer. You know, if you want an example, sit on the couch, hold your breath, see how long you can hold it. Now get up, go out to your street in front of your house, hold your breath, and you don't even got to run. Just walk.
Yeah.
Just walk down the street and see how long you can hold your breath while you're walking down the street. You're exerting energy, so it's not going to be able to be near the time. So.
And when you're diving, it's also your lungs are changing. Everything's compressed.
Yeah,
like it's a different
75
feeling.
feet. You're you're under a lot of pressure at that point for, from surface water. I guess I didn't realize that you guys didn't. Do you ever dive with scuba gear or no?
I've done it. I'm not certified. I know it well enough to halfway be able to do it safely. Now, anyone that scuba dives is going to say I'm stupid because I mean, I really don't. I'll be the first to admit I don't know how to really scuba dive. I'll go with friends every now and then and do the lobster thing, but it's so much gear. I'm not comfortable doing it. I don't really like doing it. I'll play on a hookah. I do like the hookah. That's the thing that like pumps the air down to you.
Okay.
That's pretty fun because with the lobster, it is nice. It's nice being able to breathe because you got to spend some time down there.
And how deep, or like when you go to do lobstering, how deep is that typically?
Like the 40-foot stuff a lot of the time.
So you're not, I mean, when you
like
say you're not certified, you're not diving 300 foot.
No. So like I'll do the 90-foot. I've done the 90 stuff on scuba and I'm with someone the whole time. Sure. Like basically I know how to do it until something goes wrong.
Right. So
but that's not really when you want to learn how to handle that situation.
Not the time when you want to figure out, that you don't know how to do something as an emergency time. One of the unique things about Joey, I have a list in my head of things. That's why I keep looking at the board like I'm looking at something. But
I know.
really
I just looked. I was like, "Where are you reading?"
No, I'm not reading this at all. One of the unique things that like I find very interesting about your channel, you are literally one of the only people in the state of Florida allowed to remove Goliath groupers from the water. How cool is that to be able to pull those fish? And I'll let Joey explain this, but it's a research thing. But if you don't kind of run through why you're allowed to do that and what you do for being able to pull those Goliaths out of the water.
So I have a research permit for it, and someone approached me a while ago because I was catching them on video, and they wanted someone in my area to do some research on it, and I was already catching them, so why not? And basically what this does, it's genetic research. So I'm taking a fin clipping. You can think of that like a hair sample on a person. So you take, let's say, 10 fin clippings from one location or roughly one location, and you compare the DNA. Now, siblings have really, really, really similar DNA. So if all the DNA from those 10 samples look like they're really closely related, you would guess that there's not that many around because the family is so small. Just same thing. Like think about going into someone's house and pull DNA samples from everyone there. They're probably gonna be pretty similar.
Yeah.
Now go to a city. You might get a couple that are similar, and then go to a state, go bigger. And the more difference there is in the samples is for a population estimate for how many there are. Yeah. So if they're really, really different, then they've been breeding and getting more and more different DNA. So there's more out there.
Yeah. Which obviously there is, because for the first time ever, probably in our lifetime, this year, you're legally allowed to keep, well, let me preface this by saying there is a ton of stuff that goes into this. You have to be approved. You have to get a permit. You can't just go out and keep one.
It's similar to the alligator tags.
Yes. But they are issuing some Goliath grouper tags this year where you can actually harvest a Goliath
for 2023. It will be the harvesting
for
season.
Next year. Yeah. So, which is a good sign. That means the populations are growing. They're, they're coming back. I mean, were they like borderline extinct at one point? Is that what
I didn't see it. It's just before my time though. So I'm not saying they weren't. I will say, as long as I've been diving, and I feel like you get a whole different understanding when you dive. I dive a lot of the spots I fish, and I know the spots a lot different than a lot of the fishermen do because I see what's down there.
Sure.
And there's spots that I've been diving for 15 or probably even closer to 20 years now that I was just telling you today, a spot I used to see a ton of gag groupers at inshore is overrun with Goliaths. I never saw Goliaths there when I was like 15 years old.
Yeah.
And now that's all that's there.
Well, and it's crazy because I feel the same way about red snapper.
Right. That's the other one.
Obviously, they're considered I don't know if they're considered an endangered species anymore. They were at one point, and they're probably in our area. I would venture to guess they are the most regulated fish in our entire area. And I mean, the rules are so stringent on it, but yet I go out and I'm in Pensacola Bay, and I can literally sit there and catch 20 red snapper, just back to back to back to back, and as long as you want to catch them. And I'm like, if they're really that endangered, how is there so many of them, out here? It's just, And I don't know how. I'm not a scientist. I don't know how it all works.
Same thing here. I don't understand. I've heard different things, even from information from different people that contradicts each other. So you don't know what to believe.
Right.
I will say, you're lucky with the season you have compared to ours.
Oh yeah, I know.
I think this year we only had one weekend.
Yeah.
I think we had a Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
3 days. Yeah.
So that was the entire recreational red snapper season.
And that's crazy. I mean, there's got to be more, which you guys are in a different, I guess a little different. So when you want to go red snapper fishing, you got to go deep, right? You're not catching those close.
For the most part, yeah. I mean, I'm going out. You're going to go out to the closest reef line would probably be like out of Sebastian, like the 60-foot range, which is going to put you like 8 miles out or so.
Yeah.
But really, if you want to go to like the 90-foot bar, it's going to be more like 15 miles.
Yeah. So for us, like and you guys have seen this on my channel. I mean, I catch red snappers in our bay, which is a very unique fishery we have that we're able to do that because our bay system is so deep. That was one of the biggest things that shocked me. Like when I was kind of running around with the Mako, I came down to Tampa Bay, and in my mind, I'm thinking Pensacola, like we've got channels that are 40, 60, 75 foot deep in places. I'm running wide open across Tampa Bay, and I look down and I'm in like 3 foot of water, and I'm like, what? And I'm out in the middle.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what's going on? Everybody's like, yeah, the bay systems aren't all like Pensacola Bay. A lot of them are much shallower than what you guys deal with. So that was a huge learning curve for me when you start bouncing around to different places like, we do. So, do you travel to do your YouTube stuff? Do you do much traveling, or do you kind of keep it in the house?
I kind of keep it in the house. I got a couple spots that I go to. Like I got a couple friends, some really good friends that have a really, really nice boat, and they like doing the Bahamas stuff a lot, and I love it over there. So I go to the Bahamas several times a year, and then I've actually really started to like Mexico. I've only been there twice, but that's like hands down my favorite place now.
Do you notice like a big difference in like how to fish those areas, or is it kind of the same?
No, there's definitely a difference. And I think the Bahamas, I like the Bahamas because it's so pretty. It's clear water. There can be really, really good fishing, but I don't necessarily want to go there just to kill it fishing. Not because there's a million fish and I want to do that. It's pretty. It's really enjoyable. The lobstering's fun. All that's good. But the place I go in Mexico is kind of the opposite. I mean, it's still pretty. It's really pretty, but I mean, it's not crystal clear water by any means, but it's also a place that's just nowhere near pressured as it is here. And I mean, maybe someday it will be, but there's nothing there.
Yeah.
You're in a desert. I mean, there's nothing in these areas that I'm going to that the commercial fishery for most of these people, from what I've seen, the commercial fishermen are doing stuff like scallops and then fish traps for like trigger fish and just small fish. It's like they're not going after these like 30-pound, 50-pound, 100-pound groupers. They're going after the smaller fish.
Yeah.
So there's just so many giant fish, and they look at you like they've never seen people before. So many of these fish. Where here you see a grouper and it's tailing away, and or when I say here, I'm talking more about like South Florida or the Bahamas.
Sure, yeah.
They've all seen people.
Right. And I didn't realize you did some commercial fishing. Like, I didn't realize that you were licensed to do that. So that was pretty cool that we were, honestly, Joey and I had never spoken until about 3 days ago. And I reached out to him and I was like, hey man, I'd love to have you on the podcast. Can we get together? And he was like, yeah, we can do that. So 3 days later, here we are on the East Coast, Florida, doing a podcast. But I've heard so many people be like, well, the rules, they changed the rules, but I don't care. But people don't understand. We can't get by with that. We film, and not that we would want to. I don't want to make it sound like that, because that sounds like we wish we could. No, the reason we don't ever get stopped by FWC is because everybody knows we follow the rules. We're not going to break rules.
I know
and put
all
them
the
on
officers. They know I'm not going to do something.
Yeah.
I mean, they'll still check me.
Sure.
I don't get special treatment or anything.
They won't check us. I want videos. Like, if you're an FWC officer, I want you to check me, because those videos do really well on my channel. I'm just telling you that right now. But yeah, we're not breaking rules, and then they know that. Like, they know we're not going to go out and break rules, and so everything gets done on the up and up. But you would not believe the people that are like, I don't have to abide by the rules. And it's like, yes, you do. Like,
dude, you need to get an FWC officer on here and get some of the stories, because I'm friends with a lot of them.
That would actually be a great podcast.
It is amazing the stories that they get on the daily of people coming through our inlet. And I'm not saying one red snapper. I'm saying a box hidden, topped off with 15-pound reds. I mean, a lot of people say they caught a 15-pound red snapper. A 15-pound red snapper is a big red snapper.
Yes.
And I'm talking a box that has like 5 or 10 of them in it. It's more than you need for dinner, and they're not making a mistake there. They're doing it, and it ain't their first time.
Yeah.
It's just their first time getting caught.
We found, or not we, but the state of Florida found the dude with like, what was it, like 12,000 pounds of pompano on his boat or something.
I remember that,
It was a big deal back in the spring. They was in the Gulf.
I think it got him in a net or something. It was like a gill net or something.
But he kept them on his boat, and he was like just, I don't know the exact number. So I mean, I'm not like quoting anything, but like, for instance, you're allowed to have like 1,200 pounds or something like that. It's a very small number. This dude had like 12,000. It was like he was 10 times over the legal limit of what you're allowed to have, and he just rolled back in like nobody was going to say anything to him about having 12,000 pounds of pompano on his commercial fishing boat. So it's just, I've said this before, just follow the rules. It's really not that hard. And yes, it sucks. It sucks that you only get a 3-day red snapper season. I get it. Everybody likes to eat them, but there's plenty of other fish out there to eat.
That's the way I look at it.
I mean, red snapper's not my favorite anyways. I will take a mangrove snapper all day over red snapper.
I don't know about that.
Really?
Mangrove's my bottom snapper.
Really? Well, see, but you get the big ones here though, don't you?
We do get the big ones, and there is a big difference between a 13-inch mangrove and I mean, I don't know if you want to show it. Grab that sheet right there with that fish on it. All the way against the wall, the gray thing. That's a mangrove. That's a fish rub.
No kidding.
This is a mangrove snapper, and it's a fish rub. That means I took a fish and put paint on the fish, and that was I think it was a 33-inch mangrove. It was a 15-pound mangrove.
So see, yeah, see, I'm not catching
That's a different mangrove. That's a little bit different meat quality.
For sure. Because what I'm talking about is like those 12, 13, 14-inch mangroves.
No, they're good.
To me, that's the best, my favorite fish. That and redfish are my 2 favorite fish to eat. But I'm not going offshore a lot catching those type mutton, lane. Like, I'm not catching those on a regular basis.
And those are probably the 2 I'd put at the top, is the mutton and the lane.
Really? And I've never...
Mutton would probably be my favorite.
I've never caught a mutton. I've caught a lane before, but I've never caught a mutton snapper before. So... Anything else you want to add? We're getting close to time limit here. So anything you want to add before we wrap up?
I don't know.
He says, I don't know. I mean,
I don't know.
We found out all kinds of stuff about Joey today. I didn't know you were a bowler. I didn't know you were a commercial fisherman until today. So
I got hidden things. I can ride a unicycle.
Yeah, what?
I can unicycle.
You can ride, like literally you can ride a unicycle?
I can ride a unicycle.
Have you ever done that on your channel?
No. I have all these things that I can do that people don't know about. Like I used to skimboard a lot.
Yeah.
And I technically skimboard professionally, but I was never really competitive in the professional thing. I used to skimboard a lot. A lot of people don't know that.
Well, I ride a one wheel. It's way different than a unicycle.
I actually rode one. Someone had one and they're like, try it. And I'm like, no, like, I don't know. I don't even know the guy. I was at a CVS. He's like, try it. You'll be able to do it. He's like, just don't try to balance and you'll be fine. I'm like, all right. And it was really cool. But
I love my one wheel, and they've seen me. So I use it for fishing. We have a place there in Alabama called Lake Shelby, and the docks are super spread out. But there's blacktop paths to all of them. So I'll park my car, take 2 rods and a backpack, and just take off, and I'll work my way all the way around Lake Shelby, and I never have to get back in my car. It's awesome.
That's pretty cool. I see people ride them on the beach at low tide and stuff around here.
I can't do that because I'm fat. Like it'll just sink down.
Much.
It's. I mean, I need to lose weight, and I know that, but I can't take my one wheel on the beach. They are made for sand. They are not made for heavy people with sand.
Gotcha.
That's a definitely no go. So, well, Joey, thank you so much for sitting down with me today. I greatly appreciate it. Guys, thank you all so much for all the support you guys have shown on these podcasts. I was telling Joey, we're reaching a point where the podcast videos are doing better than the fishing videos here lately. And I'm not mad about that. I love sitting down and doing these interview style videos. I think it gives your audience a kind of different perspective of, your life off camera. It gives my audience new people to watch. They've told me they really enjoy that. So thanks again for sitting down. I greatly appreciate it. Thanks for taking me out fishing this morning.
We'll get back out there.
Yeah.
On a better day.
I'll do better next time. I promise. So guys, we can't wait to see y'all on the next one. Y'all take care and we'll see you soon.